Mr. Speaker, members, would like to welcome my beautiful wife. She's visiting with us here today. Susan Rubio is joining us here. It also happens to be our 2-year anniversary today. I'll never forget the date because it falls on this important day. Budget day. Thank you for helping me welcome her.
Members, we have business before us today. Please take your conversations to the back of the chamber. We are moving to Assembly third reading. File items 3 through 6, pass and retain. Moving to file item number 7, that's ACR 82. The clerk will read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 82 by Assemblymember Williams and others relative to California Grown Flower Month.
Mr. Williams, you may open on the resolution.
Mr. Speaker, members, this resolution, ACR 82, proclaims June 2015 as California Grown Cut Flower Month. The state's cut flower business dates back to the late 1870s when a homemaker in Ventura, California, in my district, Theodosia Shepard, was inspired to sell the flowers she raised in her garden. Today, the California-grown flower industry includes farmers, wholesalers, and retail florists and provides over 145,000 jobs and 80% of all domestically grown flowers in the United States. Let me repeat that. 80% of the flowers grown in the United States are in California. Not only is the industry a significant job creator, but our state's flower farmers are dedicated to providing the most sustainably grown flowers available to consumers. California flower farmers ensure sustainability by implementing growing methods that respect surrounding ecosystems, reduce the use of pesticides, assure the fair treatment of farm workers, and reduce energy and water usage. Some of these folks have to comply with rules to have zero discharge. They are very, very good operations and much more environmentally beneficial than any foreign flowers that you could buy. ACR 82 honors the men and women of the California-grown flower industry for their contributions to the state's economy and environment. I ask for the first roll to be open for co-authors.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, Mr. Williams is asking that the first roll be open for co-authors. With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members wishing to add as co-authors on ACR 82. This is for co-authors members on ACR 82. The clerk will close the roll. There are 77 co-authors added on ACR 82. Without objection, we may take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. File item 8, pass and retain. Members, I have a brief announcement that the Rules Committee will be meeting in the Rules Committee room upon adjournment of session. The Rules Committee will be meeting in the Rules Committee room upon adjournment. Moving to announcements and adjournments in memory while we await Senate action. The following members were granted prior permission to speak on an adjournment in memory. And members, if I could have your attention for the adjournments in memory before us today. I'm going to begin with Mr. David Chu. You are recognized at your desk for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. I rise today to adjourn in the memory of a great San Francisco labor and civil rights hero, Mr. Leroy King, a longtime champion for diverse communities in my city and in our state. After serving in the Army during World War II in Europe, Leroy King came to San Francisco, where he joined ILWU Local 6. He became an organizer, working with the union's legendary leader, Harry Bridges. He was one of the very first African Americans to serve in local union leadership, forging lifelong ties between the African American community and our labor movement. He was part of the group that arranged for Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. to visit the Bay Area during the 1960s. After his own experience with his wife as an interracial couple, forced to move 9 times in their first year of marriage, Leroy helped to create the St. Francis Square Cooperative Housing Development, an early national model for racially integrated housing, where he lived from when it opened until he died with 4 generations of his family. Mr. King was also famous for his work in building deep ties between our city's African American and Japanese American communities during the 3 decades that he served on San Francisco's Redevelopment Commission. Much of our city's legacy would not have been possible without Leroy, as he advanced workers' rights, fought for equality and civil rights, built affordable housing, and shaped numerous locations, including the Yerba Buena Gardens and the Fillmore District. He was also one of the most kind and gentle souls that I had the chance to get to know in my time in public office. San Francisco is saddened by Mr. King's passing, but his legacy will live on the streets of San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. Mr. Ting, you too are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also wanted to echo my colleague from San Francisco comments about Mr. King. He was one of those leaders that when you first got active in the community, you had to go talk to really understand the history and the politics of San Francisco. He was one of those rare people who felt comfortable not only in the labor movement, but really in the African American community and very much in all of our grassroots communities. He is such a fixture that we owe much of our political legacy and, frankly, our activism to somebody like him. He was the longest-serving member on our Redevelopment Commission. He was really recently honored by the naming of the Carousel and the Yerba Buena Center with his name on it. So if you ever bring kids to San Francisco and you go ride that carousel, I hope you'll think of Mr. Leroy King. I respectfully ask that you be adjourned in his memory.
Thank you, Mr. Ting. Mr. Dodd, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I ask you today to join me in remembering and celebrating of the life of Fred Clark Heydrich of Woodland. An innovative farmer, he devoted his time to agriculture and had a passion for the restoration of tractors and equipment. This led him to create the Fred C. Heydrich Antique Tractor Museum in 1995, the world's largest and most unique collection of one-of-a-kind antique agricultural equipment. Fred is survived by his wife and childhood sweetheart, Sandra, daughter, Melissa Harlan Blake, son, Frederick Gregory Heydrich, his wife Stacy, and 5 grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd. Mr. Levine, you are recognized from your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise to ask that we adjourn in memory today of famed folk singer, songwriter, actress, and lifelong activist Ronnie Gilbert, who passed away Saturday, June 6th in Mill Valley at the age of 88. Ronnie Gilbert was known for her voice. Her crystalline, bold contralto helped propel folk music to wide popularity. Her outspoken voice on social causes also helped folk music establish its power as an agent of change. For more than 60 years, the Weavers have been the seminal voice of folk music. The Weavers helped inspire Peter, Paul, and Mary, Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, the Kingston Trio, the Limelighters, and many more. The Weavers also had a storied history and were blacklisted from television and concert appearances during the McCarthy era because band members were accused of being communists. Ronnie Gilbert was the lone female vocalist for the Weavers, which originally included Lee Hayes, Fred Hellerman, and Pete Seeger. Gilbert also sang alongside Woody Guthrie, Holly Near, Leadbelly, Judy Collins, Hoyt Axton, Eric Darling, the United States Military Academy Band of West Point, and many others. The voice of Ronnie Gilbert was simply beguiling. When she sang, her energy was infectious. One could almost see the music through the sparkle in her eyes. She sang such songs as This Land Is Your Land, If I Had a Hammer, On Top of Old Smoky, Good Night, Irene, Kisses Sweeter Than Wine, and Tsena, Tsena, Tsena. Her theater work included a role on Broadway in The Man in the Glass Booth and a one-woman show about labor activist Mary Harris, who was also known as Mother Jones. In 2004, in a same-sex public wedding celebration at City Hall in San Francisco, Ronnie Gilbert married Donna Carones, her partner of 20 years. She had earlier been married to Martin Wegg from 1950 to 1959. They had one daughter, Lisa. She is survived by her daughter, a granddaughter, and Carones. She was once asked how the Weavers touched the human spirit. She said, "We sang songs of hope. We still had the feeling that if we could sing loud enough and strong enough and hopefully enough, it could make a difference." Throughout her life, Ronnie Gilbert was committed to a variety of social causes, including feminism and global peace activism. I think I speak for folk music fans around the world when I say, so long, Ronnie Gilbert. It's been good to know you.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Mr. Mathis, you are recognized for your adjournment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. It's with a heavy heart today that I ask we adjourn in memory for Andrew Machart, a professor at Porterville College, who tragically passed away May 25th. For the last 17 years, Andy was a professor of philosophy at Porterville College. He was constantly striving to find a better way to engage and make his students think. I happen to be one of those students. He was among the first to design and propose an associate for a transfer degree at Porterville College. And because of his efforts, PC was among the first colleges in California to offer an AA in philosophy for transfer. Outside of the classroom, Andy was an avid cyclist and loved playing chess. He beat me several times. At only 45, Andy is survived by his wife, Dominique, and their 2 young sons, Garrett and Tyler. I happen to know Andy personally. It's through his efforts and through his classes that I learned logic and the formulas and putting everything together and into perspective, and he will truly be missed. I ask that we adjourn in his memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis. Members, please bring the names to the desk to be printed in the journal. All requests to adjourn in memory will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Members, we ask that you remain on the floor. The Assembly will remain in session while we await action in the Senate.